Hi class, in this video we're going to talk about variables. So I've signed into my network, I'm in my working directory, and I created this playbook. I already had it pre-created. Okay, and so what we're going to do is talk about variables. So here's my normal playbook. I have my name field for my playbook. I have which host is going to apply to, and I have a new dictionary called vars. And in that dictionary, there's another dictionary item with a list of applications that I want to install. And so anything under vars is going to be a variable name. So this isn't a standard YAML uh, keyword. It is basically a variable, which I'm going to use down here. So how I use the variable is by enclosing it in double squiggly brackets and quotes. So for this one, I'm going to change this to present because I was testing it. I'm going to save it. Now again, all this is inside of D2L, so you can get the script there. So I'm going to run it. Maybe not. Actually, I'm going to do something else before I run it. I'm going to go back up to my working directory. I have this file called bashrc, .bashrc. So I'm going to edit that file. I'm in my working directory, my home directory rather. It's going to do code. You could use VI to edit this. That dot means it's a hidden file. So under here, I'm going to do alias Ansible playbook. No, just Ansible playbook is going to equal and I'll explain this in a minute. I'm going to create another alias for AP equals so I don't have to keep typing this out every time. If I want to do a syntax check, I can use APS, and if I want to do just run a playbook, I can do AP. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to log off and log back in. I'm going to cd into my working directory. And I'm just going to type the word alias. These are all the aliases that I have. So instead of having to type out this full command, I can just type out AP. Instead of typing out this full command, I can type APS. So Ansible playbook with syntax checking. So I can do APS lab 3 script 1. That'll check my syntax. So when I run it, I can just type AP Okay, so it installed some software. So if I go SSH rsh2.contoso.com, I have nmap there, list, um, yum list installed, grep for nmap. I have nmap installed. This is not nmap. This is some module for nmap. So this is nmap. I have httpd installed. This isn't the web server. None of these, just this one is. Um, so everything got installed. I'm going to exit out of here. I'm going to open up that script again. So instead of having each package name under my task, I can just refer to that variable, and then right here will be all the packages that I install. So it will automatically add an entry for each one of these where packages is located. So it makes your playbook a lot cleaner. So I'm going to remove all this software for our next playbook. I'm going to save it, rerun the script to uninstall everything. Now, in this, I created a variable in dictionary format for, and I used it here in squiggly brackets. If you look at our Ansible config file, these are variables too that we've already predefined. Here's some variables. We set the become variable to equal true. We set the inventory variable to be inventory. We set the remote user variable to be developers. And if you remember some of the ad hoc commands that we ran, we use variables there right on our command line as well. Also, if you look at this file, cat group var windows, these are variable too. In this particular case, we use the variables in a dictionary format. You know, colon space, this is the key, this is the value. So here's the Ansible password. Now these variables only apply to computers in our Windows host. And there's the command to see all the hosts in that group. I also have another group called Linux, or I can run that command with all. Those are all my hosts. Again, this just runs the previous command and replaces the word Linux with all. So you can have a var file that's just automatically associated with a particular group. So if I had a var file called Windows and I had a group called Windows, Ansible would automatically use this file. I don't need to do anything special to use this. So our next script we're going to create is this script. I am using a variable here, but I'm not setting the variable like I did in the last Ansible file. So the last Ansible playbook. So what I did was created a variable file for the Linux group. And basically, I put those packages here. So if I cat my you can see that in my Linux group variable file, I have 4 packages. In my script 1, I put a total of 5. So I have one less package here. Um, I also created another file called, I created a directory called host vars, and then I created a file called rhs2.contoso.com. I have a host, an inventory host with that name. So if I have a file under host vars with the inventory host name, those variables will automatically be read for that particular host. So if I do anything to this host, so if I have any task that's using this host, it'll read these it would read these variables into memory. If I have any host in the Linux group, it would automatically read these variables into memory. So when I look at this script, and you can see in my Linux inventory host, I have a variable called packages. Which, sorry, in my Linux variable file, I have a variable called packages. In my host variable file, right here, I also have a variable called packages. So let's run the second script and see what applies. So ap Ansible ap lab 3 underscore script 2 and run it. So this is going to apply to all the hosts in the Linux group. So what got applied? In this server, RHS1, I'm going to do yum list installed grep for HTTPD. And I can see it's installed. And I can see in my Linux var file that was one of the packages I wanted to install. So now I'm going to connect to the other host. So I'm going to yum list installed grep for HTTPD. I have some utilities for the web server, but I don't actually have the web server installed. You see how this is just the architecture. This is the actual package name. So I don't have a package HTTPD installed. But do I have a package called nmap? Yes, nmap is installed. So I'm going to exit out of this host and go back to the first host. Do I have nmap installed on this host? I don't have nmap installed. I just have nmap-cat, which is a module. So I'm going to go to my Ansible doc page. Let me just pull it up back to I'm going to go to Ansible documentation. I'm going to do a search of variables. I'm going to go into using variables. Then I want to go into this variable uh, precedent section. So what we did in our lab was we're going to use a variable in our playbook called packages. I set it inside of our var group for the Linux group. So these would apply to all Linux hosts in that group. And I also set the same variable packages inside of the one for RHS2. So which variable applies? So as I go through and execute my script, it's going to do RHS1 first. And it's going to find this variable and use it. So in the order of precedence, if you have an inventory group and you have a group vars file, that one will take precedent over something you've entered in the command line. So if you had variables in a playbook, those will take precedent over anything in group vars there, or off of inventory, or inside of a playbook. So these are the precedent. So in our particular case, and it's going to take some while to get used to this, in our particular case, we have a variable set here and a variable set here. Excuse me. A variable set here and a variable set here. So on RHS1, it accepts the variable set here. So when we go into RHS2, it sets the variable here, then resets it down here because I have that same variable used again for my individual host. It's not a compilation of both variables joined together. It's only going to use the last one that's set. So it was set at the group level, then again set for the individual server itself. So this one will take precedent over the one that was set for the entire group. So in our case, we set the variable for the group packages to be these 4 packages. And then for RHS1, that was the only thing that was set. But when we went through RHS2, it read these, set the variable, the value would be this, and then as it read this file, it reset the same variable name to be now nmap. So this will be the variable that actually is used inside of our playbook, not this one, because when this one was read, it overrode this variable value. So it's important to understand um, which variable is used where. Guys, and it's real easy to set a variable. You can use a variable name, any name that you want, except for it can't start with a number. And there's more documentation about variables here. And all we did was I put it in dictionary format, packages, colon, space, and I can have an individual item or a list of items, and that's what that variable will do. In our particular case, we used that variable when it was set to 4 list items, it would install all 4 packages. For RHS2, it was only 1. So it installed the one package. So guys, we'll be using more variables in later labs, but I'm just kind of giving you an introduction to variables and where you can set them. You can set them in your Ansible file, your Ansible config file. Here are some regular variables, something equals something else. Variable name, value. Or you can set it inside of your inventory file. I don't have any set here, and I'll tell you why. When I was practicing for this lab, 2.9.9 was out. So I had all my variables in this file. And right before this class um, opened up, I installed variable for our lab. I installed Ansible for our lab and realized I was on 2.9.10. At that point, it couldn't read my inventory files if I had any group variables inside of here. Um, and it would look something like this. I'm not going to save this, but so let's just say I had a Windows group right there. And so I would create :vars, and then that would be my variables for that group. But when I upgraded to 2.9.10, it didn't like this anymore. And I can't find any documentation to see if this has been deprecated or something has changed. I thought, well, maybe if I put it in a dictionary format as opposed to this format, it would work. That didn't work as well. So I'm not sure if that's going to still be the case. I'm not going to save my work. I'm hitting Q bang. Um, so you could put variables in your Ansible file. According to the book, you can put variables in your inventory file. I had that working in the last um, 2.9.9, but not in 2.9.10. Maybe it's just something broken. Maybe it still is effective, and it's just not working for me. I could put variables inside of a group file under group vars, and this would be the group name. It has to match the inventory group name, or I could put variables for individual host here, or I could put, like I did in lab 1, I can set the variable inside of a playbook. And again, if you're using the same variable name, you need to know which variable is going to be used. That's where this variable precedent comes into play. If I had it in a inside of a play within a playbook, that would take precedent over one inside of my var host. That would take precedent over one inside my group vars. So you really need to know which one is actually being used. It can be very difficult to diagnose issues like that. When when you create a variable in the command line, if that variable set anywhere else, it's definitely going to be um, overwritten by because that's the lowest precedent. We have this thing called extra var, extra vars that takes precedent. So I'm going to do Ansible I did dash dash help, and I have this extra var switch here. So if you run an ad hoc command and you put the dash E, those variables will take precedent over any other variables. Um, so just be aware that there is a way to override all others using the ad hoc command and the dash E. You might be able to use this in a playbook as well. I've never played with this, but so just a little overview of variables. I'm going to I'm going to do two more videos for this week. One will be on facts and one will be on secrets. So that's it for this video, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.